Hello everyone, hope you are all doing well and welcome to all into the new video session of our today's activity based on the required thing that we will do now. After a long period of time I am doing a new video. In this particular video I will usually show about how to create the motions of the characters using the print function by just pressing the directional keys, that means top, right, bottom, left, these directional keys from the keyboard, and it will show the motion of the characters in the forward and backward direction in both ways, that it will just create its appearance within the console app that will be displayed. And for that I need to use the Windows header file, set console cursor position as the built-in function, and the other built-in function which is very necessary for controlling the directional keys from the keyboard, which is get async key state, is needed to be used as to control the keys whenever we pressed the right key at, at the right time to create the motion of the statements that is being defined inside print function and executed inside the console app, as to see the outcome of the motion that is appearing inside the screen. So at the time of pressing the directional keys according to the right part, which particular option I want to choose in which perspective, whenever I will just press the keys, then it can control the key activities using this get async key state built-in function. And for that we need to pass the parameters of the directional keys, the required indicators, the required keywords as a constant to pass it inside so that it can able to detect the required keys action. So first of all I will show you now the set console cursor position activities, and after that I will show you the get async key state, what is the required performance or required activity of utilizing the operation. Before going to that particular operation of how to show the motion of the characters inside the console app using this Windows header file and other two built-in functions. So in this case you can see I have defined the Windows header file, and I will just remove the required user defined function, and you can see this four particular important instruction, that is this thing, that these three instructions is usually depicting about controlling the axis. That means whenever you are putting any integer or short type value and passing it within these user defined functions from the main function area, and you are just passing the x-axis value and y-axis value, that means you're just passing the horizontal distance value and vertical distance value, which is controlling just using the x and y axis. So this COORD, this code is just coordinate the x-axis and y-axis alignments, and it is just acting here as the struct type, and for that we need to create the variable. According to this variable you can able to access its x and y variables and assign the required values inside this x and y variables, that is the members of this code struct type. And this set console cursor position is the built-in function in the Windows header file. This built-in function has the required facility, and the setup and predefined formatted set is already being set up in that environment, so that's why whenever we include the Windows header file we can able to create an accessibility of this built-in function. So without Windows header file, you cannot able to execute it within this environment of this coding editor. In this built-in function, you can see we need to pass the standard handle format. So that's why we need to use this get std handle, and as a standard output handle, we need to define the constant inside this built-in function. This is just creating the constant required value so that it can able to identify or detect the required handle of controlling the axis operation according to the output that will be executed inside the console screen. So it is just handling its internal operations. So that's why we need to pass these built-in functions reference inside this console app console cursor position built-in function. Within this, we need to pass the parameter inside this and called that the variable that we have defined. If we just assign these x and y values within this x and y variable, then this variable as the struct variable that we have created, we need to pass this variable as a parameter too inside this set console cursor position. We need to pass this variable also so that it can control its axis. And now the required operation is, we will see now how it can keep its minimum distance to change the position of the statement. Any type of statement, either it may be a text, or it may be an integer value, or it may be a double type value, or whatever type of value we set up using the print function, it can able to change its position along the vertical and horizontal alignment. So let us think that we have defined this move items user defined function, and there is the 5 and 2 units passing as the x value and y value inside this move items user defined function, and it is just defined after the print function, and the statement is defined inside this printf. And if we run this code, first of all we need to build and then we need to run the code. You can see the text is not text is not attached at the edge of this console app. It is just keeping its distance vertically and horizontally at minimum 5 unit apart from the left edge of the console app and 2 unit apart from the top edge. That means it is keeping the 2 unit of distance from the top edge and 5 unit of distance from the left edge of this console app. Just change the required values like 10 unit for x and 15 unit for y. We can able to make the distance much extended. After running the code, you can see it has keep the minimum how much, 15 unit of vertical distance from the top edge and from the left. That means if we just maintain the x-axis format, then we can see it has kept minimum 10 unit of distance from the left. So in that's how we can see that this set console cursor position built-in function works. Now we will see the get async key state built-in function to control the directional keys from the keyboard. Since we are using the get async key state method and it is being controlled whenever we take the input from the keyboard, the directional keypads whenever it is pressed, taking that input, according to the input being detected or identified, then it provides its activity based on the condition. Whenever we define the get async key state method within each of the conditions area, and according to that the constant of the key activity, the constant of the key values whenever it is passed as a parameter for each of the get as in key state method being defined according to the condition. So that's why we do not need now the set console cursor position for that, because we are just creating the input actions based on the required condition that will be defined. So that's why we will remove that user defined move items now, and in this case we will define all the required instructions needed for taking the required input from the keyboard using the get built-in function. For that I need to declare this include conio header file, and to enable the required values, that is the required input that will be taken from the directional keypad, uh, that is from the keyboard. Whenever we pressed the required input as an input, it will be taken. Whenever we pressed any kind of directional keypad, wherever it is needed, according to the required motive of our action, according to the required perspective, then it will try to control or detect the required key activities, and finally against that key activity it will show the required output. So the instruction that we need to define inside this infinite loop, while one infinite loop, because the condition will not be true and it will try to create the loop activities, that means continuation of its activities in its area until it gets any kind of specific condition to stop the activities of the loop. So in this case you can see I have defined the get function, and the required condition is also being defined. In this conditions area you can see this built-in function get async key state, which I was discussing about, which I was just defining, giving an explanation required type of thing that needs to be applied within the instructions of this if else condition area, and based on that the required key whenever it will be pressed, the directional keys, that means top, right, bottom, left, all the directional keys that is already within the keyboard, as there is a built-in function get which takes the input from the keyboard, then that actions will be detected by this built-in function, and based on that he will try to possibly make the conditions active, and finally according to the specific condition it will try to display the required statement using the print function that is here defined for each of the condition. It will try to display the statement information within the output screen or within the console app. If we run the code, we can see it is just waiting for the input of any directional keys. So I have pressed the directional key top, so it is showing me the up key, that means the top key is being pressed from the directional keypad from the keyboard. If I just press the down, so it is showing me the down key. If I just press right, it is giving me the right update, and if it is left, then it is giving me left. So every time whatever the key I am just defining, that means I am just pressing the key, according to that the required outcome is being displayed within this console app. Now there is a problem that every statement is coming twice, that means more than one, whenever I pressed just a single key. This is a problem of not adjusting its track because of loop activities infinitely continuing its operation. But the problem is whenever I define this get function, it is just taking the input from the keyboard as well, but after since the loop's nature of activity is that it will just arrive into the initial position of the built-in function, but whenever it comes to the initial position it cannot hold its track. It automatically again uh, make the condition true and try to execute the statement inside that particular condition according to the specific directional keypad that I have pressed earlier. So it just try to give the statement information more than once for each and every particular key whenever it pressed respectively. So to resolve this problem, just provide the gauge built-in function and try and at the end of the curly braces of while loop. We need to provide again that gauge function at the last end of the while loop area. By doing this type of thing that I am defining, then it will keep its track. It will stop at this particular moment for a little amount of time, and then it will again try to arrive into this particular built-in function catch to give the opportunity to take the input again, to provide the opportunity to take the input again for that reason. Now if I just build and run the code, now as you can see, if I just press down key, it is showing down, up, right, left. By pressing each of the directional key, it is statement every time whenever the key is pressed, and it is showing me the statement single time, not more than one. So that's how this get async key state works. And now finally, to show you that how the character motion can be generated, the character's motion can be uh, actively perform its operation within the console app whenever I pressed any type of directional keys, either top, bottom, right, left, any type of directional key from the keyboard. It can able to move the component within the console screen. As we can see, here is the programming code of how to create the motion of the characters inside the console app by just clicking the arrow buttons, the directional buttons from the keyboard. So as we can see, I have just discussed set console cursor position and get async key state built-in functions already in this particular video. Now the important thing is that I will just explain about the simple algorithm that is defined inside of this each get async key state built-in functions. The defined instruction that is being um, shown here in every and each of the conditions area. So I will just give a simple overview to simply you can feel that how the required concept is being developed and what way the instructions is working on currently. So the first thing is if we just come inside of this int main function, we can see I have taken short type variables u, j, and these are all the short type variables, short data type, and int is int data type variables. The limit 30 and length alien equal to 1, these are all the integer type variables, and we need a system function. So this system function is already predefined in this std_lib header file, and since it is formatted inside this header file, that's why we can able to uh, get the opportunity to access this built-in function in this editor box, that means in this editor panel. And if we go to the right vk right get async key state, as the as we have I have already told earlier about it that the right key and left key, these all are the constants, and this can be accessible if we just define this include windows.h header file. Whenever this constant is being passed, it can automatically control or detect the directional keys action. And the important thing is now how to move the characters then. So each of the particular condition, you can see a simple algorithm is being defined. So in this here, what we can see for the first case, if we just try to move the characters, that means string that I have defined inside this print function. If we want to move this character, then we need to press the right key button or right arrow from the keyboard. If we want to move it, so we need to move one by one, that means increasing the u value by one. If we just increase the u value by 1 inside this loop, we will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like this. And each time you can see what I have explained earlier about the set console cursor position. According, if you just compare the logic, if you just try to feel the relationship within them, then you can able to understand that each of the values is increasing horizontally whenever I have passed the parameter u inside this user defined function, and it is just passing through the, and the required information is just set or assigned in the x variable of the struct type chord, and the variable that we have created by accessing the x variable from the struct area members of the chord. And it is just controlling the horizontal alignment, the horizontal distance of the required information that I am displaying. So every time the value is increasing and the horizontal length is being increasing as well. And here this len, this, since already len, the value of len is 1, so here I have just passed the parameter as 1. That means it will maintain the vertical distance from the top edge minimum 1 unit. So in here you can see this is an end variable. So why I have used the end variable, it's because when the loop will get ended up at certain limit, then that particular value where it has finally reached its desired limit, then the last value will be stored inside this end variable. And finally when the loop activities will get end, it will come outside of the loop. For each of the, for these two types of instruction, you can see I have used end variable, and whenever it just come outside of this loop, then the required value that finally being assigned inside this end variable, that will be used in our, whenever we click on the top and bottom directional buttons from the keyboard, will be used in this particular loop for operation. So first of all, later I will give it the required explanation for this particular thing, why the end variable is important in this case whenever we control the up and down key by pressing the directional keys from the keyboard. So in this case you can see every time the horizontal axis distance is increasing one by one, and if you can feel that this particular character's position will also get changed every time. It will not remain into the current state, changing its state, current state or position every time whenever the value is increasing in horizontally. So that means what is it? It just giving an required output. What kind of required output it is providing? Whenever I pressed the right key of the keyboard, then you can feel that it is just moving in the right direction, just moving forward. And whenever I will click on the left keypad of this keyboard, then you can feel that this will be moving on the left direction, providing the positive value of x. It is just moving forward. And as you can see, if you just decreasing your value in that particular way, that you are giving a positive value but it is decreasing every time by 1, so it will again return into its current state by moving the characters one by one in the screen. Now you will see the required activities of this end variable. So you can see the length that we have used here, we are decreasing this length for the up key. Why? It's because in the y-axis there is a uh, concept about, if you just increase the values of y-axis, the minimum unit value, if you increase, then every time it will go to, it will show the required information going downward. And if you just decrease the value of y-axis, then it will go upward. So that's the concept it is just maintaining. Whenever you will press the up key from the, or you can say the top key from the keyboard, then the algorithm, that is the instruction that is being defined here, you could see that this loop value will be decreased one by one, because there is a len minus minus, which means that it is a post decrement value. So if you just decreasing this len one by one, you can see this len value is passing inside this user defined function move inp. And why I have increased plus 1, plus 2, plus 3, in this way I have increased the length value, it's because to keep the required y-axis alignment at the exact positions. Whenever you are moving the statement upward and downward, you will see each time the minimum distance at the exact length, and it can maintain its position properly by keeping the minimum distance every time whenever its movement is changing according to the actions of the key. So, and at last I need to increase the length plus plus because it finally reaches to 0. That's why I need to make it 1. Since my previous length value was 1, whenever the loop activity is finished and it comes outside of the loop, I have just create a post increment operation that will increase the value and convert the 0 to 1. That means 0 plus 1, it will give me the result as 1. For the down key, the same thing has been happening since I have already explained about the matter that whenever you are um, increasing the value for y-axis, it will go downward, and if you just decrease the value from that particular current value, then it will go to the upward direction. So that same thing is being happening in this case, that the each particular value in the loop is increasing by 1, and the highest limit is 10. That means the highest range I have defined here is 10. It will just reach up to the limit of length 10. So for this particular operation, you will see I have used system CLS. It's because whenever you are just try to make the physical motion of the statement that is executed inside the console app, the current operation will get removed from the console app. That means the earlier activity that is performed, the information is just executed inside the console app. But whenever the present activity will come, that means the required activity after the current activity is already performed, whenever that particular activity will arrive, the previous activity will get removed. To clear the console app screen, I need to use the system CLS. So if I run the code, you will see that I'm pressing the right key now, moving on the right. I'm pressing the downward key, it's moving downward. Or I can press top key, it will again come up into its uh, initial position. Again I am pressing the downward key, it's coming downward. Again I am pressing the left key, it is going to the backward direction, that is on the left. I am pressing the top key, going to the top. Again I am pressing the right key, it is just moving forward. So in this case, if I just press all the required keys randomly, you can see its activity here, the motion of the characters. And how is it possible? Every time you are using the system CLS, it is just clearing the previous information executed inside the console. So I'm just making it backwardly moving using the left key. If I just move forwardly, it may move to the forward direction. As you can see, I am pressing the right key button, downward key, left key, and the top key. It's the rectangular motion is providing. I can able to increase its limit, horizontal limit. so that it may go far more than the required horizontal length it is covering, far more than the required length. That means I have given 30, that's why it has minimum length 30. If I provide minimum 80, or let's say I will provide 60, more than, it's quite more than the 30 time has increased. Now let's see the effect. It is covering more horizontal distance than the earlier limit that is being provided. So it just extended much its horizontal length, covering more distance than the earlier limit that is being provided. So by this how you can create the motion of these characters. And the important thing is where you can apply these kinds of concept. So usually we see that some of the students of first year or second year semesters, we usually see that they try to develop the snake game or shooting game, or moving the component from right to left, or creating the simple animation effect inside the console app to create the decoration or maintaining an attractive outlook. So in that case you can use this concept, which will help you to feel some effect of the activity that is appearing every time, and you can able to understand the tools and controllings of its operation. You can able to utilize this concept in your advanced process also. This is a simple basic concept that I am showing. A lot of people, my beginners at a particular level, may be inspired to create such kind of effect. So in this how it will help you a lot. Thank you those who have watched my video, and I would like to request to all to share my video if you are interested with these concepts that I am showing every time through my video.